Okay, Angel, so this week's shooting assignment, number 5, is rule of odds. There's a number of different ways that you can organize your image, and rule of odds is one of them. Now, of course, there's lots of things that are called rules in photography, but of course, they're all suggestions, and they're things that help us as photographers, maximize the visual quality of our pictures, because the goal of photography is what? It's always to make a beautiful photograph that people really want to pay attention to and they find attractive. So that's to capture the beauty of our scene. Rule of odds is one more way of learning how to organize things. It's very simple. Okay, so it's an aesthetic theory. So aesthetics is the philosophy or the study of things that are beautiful, and it's this belief that people prefer odd numbers of objects to even numbers of objects. Of course, when you can just sort of look at it and count. So if it was 101, it would be hard to tell. But the difference, we're talking about numbers like 3, 5, 7, and 9. Also, it allows, when you do this, for triangles to form in the composition. So, and triangles are one of the strongest compositional structures. Our brain just reads these things well. I'm not sure what science or math is behind them, but these are rules that people find will work. So we're looking for the rule of odds, we're looking at any number greater than 1 that is odd. So we're really talking about 3, 5, 7, and 9, I think, at this point. Okay, so your assignment is to take a photograph that demonstrates the rule of odds. I have a typo in here. An image that is a number of the same, number of the same object that's represented by 3, 5. That should say 7, not 6. I apologize on that. And it needs to be greater than 1, and of course, odd. So 10 points of your assignment is to check that box, right? Do I have 5 objects that are the same in my picture? Yeah. Then we have to have an interesting camera angle and composition. Not requiring the rule of thirds here or leading lines. Of course, you may use those because they will guarantee that, but you can try a different, interesting camera angle and composition to see if you can break those rules or stray from them and see what happens. But honestly, it's so easy to just stick with those 2 things because they are tried and true and work every time. Always looking for beautiful light, the way your light is going to fall across something. If it's really flat and there's no real light in your image, it's dark, it's hard to see, that's 15 points of your project right there. We've got to pay attention always to how light falls. And as we move into black and white photography, which is coming up next, then we need to be really mindful of that light. Of course, I would love to see your faces and proof that you did this yourself for this assignment, and you're originally yours. I would like your selfie. It's 5 points off the top, so that brings us from 45 to 50 points. And again, this is a big project. Last week was 50 points. This is worth 50 points, and it is due Wednesday in a week. So whatever that is the week of, coming up to Halloween. So is that the 28th, I believe, I'm guessing off the top of my head. So we've got another week to do it. Let's look at some examples. All right, here's a basic still life. Now you'll see that most of these images are still life. They're pictures of objects. It's easiest to control that. But of course, if you are able to, while you're shooting landscape pictures, or, I don't know whether you've got 3 people who want to pose for you, or however that works. I think still life assignments, images work the best for this because we have the greatest control. This follows a nice rule of thirds, and it also is the rule of odds with 3 objects. We saw this image in the beginning of the school year when we were talking about great photographs and rule of thirds and things like that, compositional structures. Of course, this is taken with a drone. It's such a beautiful picture with this lovely gray rectangle of this, dock. Of course, this weird green pond lake. I love this inset rectangle that's inside that's from the faded wood. And then those 3 kayaks are just beautiful. You get this beautiful color triad, red, yellow, and blue, along with all of that green and the gray. It's just a perfect picture. And of course, it's perfectly square and there's no weird angles, and it's great composition. I'm not thinking your pictures are going to look like this, but here's an example of how one that does. Again, maybe you can work with landscape. This is when you're in a scene and you're searching for good pictures. You've got these 3 palm trees. You also, all the way on the upper corner there, you have 3 little birds too, if you notice that. But you can try to find things in the spaces around you that group into threes that help you do that. So if you're, say, apple picking over the weekend, or you're picking pumpkins or something, and how many pumpkins do you put in your frame? Keep the number 3 or 5 in your head while you're doing it. Now, your pictures can also be super simple. This is really just, a nice, clean, flat background, a nice light source. It looks like either a lamp or a window. Casts a nice, strong shadow, but you get this lovely reflection along that darker of the blue pencils. And they follow a nice leading lines, rule of thirds, flat background, nothing too messy going on in the background. Rule of odds. It's all of those things piling up together. Hopefully you're noticing that the more of these rules that we use piled together, the more successful your images will be. Love this. Just simple produce, right? Fruits and vegetables, pumpkins, pears, apples, whatever you've got that's fresh and beautiful. These are beautiful objects. The light is pretty. It looks like window light. You've got a group of 3. Now, they're all not just like standing there, the one tipped over where you see the bottom of the pear adds a little bit of interest. They're slightly different shaped. That composition is great. It's a nice rule of thirds too. Now, this next one is my favorite of all of the ones that I'm showing you because so many things are going on here. You've got these are either humongous blueberries or tiny pies. Look at the scale of that. It cracks me up. Okay, so I think they're tiny pies, but you've got these beautiful little pies. You've got 3 that are the same, right? One of them, of course, doesn't have its own it's crust on the top. So that one's where? That's at the rule of thirds. And then you have 3 little white bowls, even though they're different. You have 3 little white bowls. And then you have a 4th little bowl with some blueberries in it, and then you've got 4 little blueberries on one side and 5 on the other side. Like, it plays off of this so many times, right? So there's 7 circles plus 9 blueberries, but there's 3 of one size and 3 of the other, and then 1 of the 4th. I mean, it plays off of odds everywhere we go. This image is just beautiful because of the light and how beautiful the gray is in the background. And I've got, of course, 3 and rule of thirds. Here's not rule of thirds at all. I mean, I guess if you stick it between, it's in the center column of them, I guess it works. But these 3 little mushrooms popping up out of the bottom, there's your leading lines. And that sort of blurry diagonal coming from the upper left-hand corner, coming back down in, and those blurry plants in the background help with the with those leading lines. But the light is so pretty in this, and they just spring right up from the bottom. That's, for a number 3 there. Now, if anybody happens to be around a bunch of zebras with birds on their rear ends, this would be a lovely photograph to take. It's funny, but I just thought it was really nice. I took this from a group of images that were award-winning animal images, and so that you can see just another approach to it where those 3 birds, even though it's part of another scene, that number 3 really works. Here's another one that's great, similar to the pies. I believe this is our last image. You've got the 3 donuts, right? You got 3 donuts, and then you have 5 brown circles, right? So you've got the coffee itself, the coffee grounds, and then those 3 donuts. So that's 5. So it's 3 and then 5. You have 3 groups of circles, right? So you have the plate, the coffee grounds, and the mug. That's another 3. And it all plays off of these numbers. When people are doing these stylized images for social media posts, for advertising, from online magazines and things like that, these images are completely planned, and they're calculated based on the things that look good, and rule of odds is the one that looks good, always. So I would like to see how creative you can get. Notice all of these numbers are below 10 and greater than 1 and odd, so nothing goes beyond that, because I don't think our brain can process 11 or 13 the same way we can process 7 or 5. Definitely 3. And it allows for all these triangles to play in and around one another. And let's see what you do for next week with that. and we'll go from there. All right. Good luck, guys. Thank you.